The screams echoed through the concrete walls, bouncing off the steel doors like a haunting melody that never faded. In ADX Florence, the most secure prison in America, silence was supposed to rule. But on that night, it was shattered by the sound of a man breaking. Inside cell 313, Marcus Reed clawed at the tiny window slit, his fingers bleeding, his mind unraveling. He had been a calm man once, a bank robber known for his precision and icy control. But after 4 years in the box, even he couldn't tell what was real anymore. His reflection in the metal sink looked like a stranger. His thoughts, once sharp, now tangled like wires. Then it happened. Marcus started laughing. Not a normal laugh, but a deep, broken sound that filled the hallway. The guards watching through the camera froze. They had seen men cry, scream, even beg to die. But this was different. Marcus was smiling, as he whispered something into the air. Finally, I see the door. The guard on duty, Officer Lewis, turned to his partner. Did he just say he sees a door? There's no door, his partner replied. He's losing it, like the others. But what none of them knew, not yet, was that Marcus Reed wasn't hallucinating. Or at least, he didn't think he was. Behind his eyes, he saw something no one else could, a secret hidden deep within ADX Florence. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. And before sunrise, Marcus would vanish from his cell. It all began 6 years earlier. Marcus Reed wasn't always the man who haunted the minds of ADX guards. Once, he was just another criminal on the run. A former Marine-turned-bank robber, he was known for planning robberies like military operations. No blood, no chaos, no mistakes. Until one day, things went wrong. The FBI had been tracking his crew for months. The final heist was supposed to be clean, simple, in and out in 10 minutes. But one of his men panicked. Shots were fired. A security guard was hit. And just like that, Marcus's world collapsed. When the FBI cornered him in a Denver safe house, he didn't resist. He just sat there, calm, smoking a cigarette. You'll never find the money, he told them. It was the last thing he said before being sentenced to life without parole. His destination, ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. At first, Marcus thought he could handle it. He had been trained to survive under pressure, to adapt to isolation. The cell was small, 7 feet wide, 12 feet long, just enough room to breathe. The concrete bed, the metal toilet, the slit of light through the ceiling, it was all part of the design. ADX was built to break you without laying a hand on you. The first week, Marcus stayed sharp. He exercised, meditated, counted seconds between guard checks. He told himself he wouldn't lose his mind like the others. Then came the silence. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The voices from other cells grew fainter. The air felt heavier. He began talking to himself, first in whispers, then in full conversations. Sometimes he heard footsteps that weren't there. Sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he saw a shadow standing in the corner of his cell. He told the prison psychologist once, "It's not that I'm seeing things. It's that something's watching me." The psychologist wrote it down, nodded, and left. No one came back. One night, the power flickered. It almost never did. The hum of the fluorescent light cut off for exactly 10 seconds. When it came back, Marcus noticed something. The corner of his ceiling had a faint line, like a seam. Something he had never seen before. At first, he thought he was imagining it. But the next day, the same flicker happened again. 10 seconds of darkness. When the lights came back, the seam was wider. And then came the tapping. It was faint, rhythmic, like a code. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Marcus pressed his ear to the wall. Someone, or something, was communicating from the other side. That night, he couldn't sleep. The tapping returned, closer, louder. He tapped back, mimicking the rhythm. The next response sent chills through his body. "Do you want out?" Marcus froze. He tapped back. "Who are you?" No reply. Just silence. The next morning, the guards found Marcus staring at the wall, whispering under his breath. "There's a way out," he muttered, over and over. They thought he'd finally snapped. But Marcus was certain now, ADX Florence wasn't just a prison. It was hiding something. Something the government didn't want anyone to find. Days later, he began his plan. He counted every second of the light's flicker, every shift rotation, every sound from the vents. He knew the prison's systems better than the guards themselves. And then, on the 7th night, the power flickered again. This time, When the lights came back, cell 313 was empty. Officer Lewis was the first to see it. He ran to the control panel, rewound the feed, nothing. Marcus had simply disappeared during the 10-second blackout. The cameras glitched, and when they came back online, the cell was empty. No tunnel. No signs of escape. Just one phrase carved into the wall, written with something that looked like blood. It's not a prison. It's a test. By morning, the FBI had arrived. The warden locked down the entire facility. No one, not even staff, could leave. But as they searched, they made a disturbing discovery. Marcus wasn't the first to vanish. Records showed 3 other inmates, all marked as psychotic transfers, had disappeared under similar circumstances in the last 10 years. Every time, the same 10-second blackout. Every time, the same message. It's not a prison. It's a test. Officer Lewis stared at the words on the wall, his hands shaking. "What kind of test?" he whispered. And then, as if in answer, the lights flickered again. A single sound echoed through the hallway. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Lewis turned toward cell 314, Marcus's neighbor. "Hello," he called. A low voice answered from the darkness. "He's still here." And the lights went out. When the lights went out inside ADX Florence that night, the silence that followed was so complete, it felt alive. Officer Lewis froze in the darkness, his flashlight trembling in his hand. For a moment, all he could hear was his own breathing, then came the sound again. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. He swung his flashlight toward cell 314, where the voice had come from. The beam hit the steel door, scratched, rusted, and smeared with something dark. "Who's in there?" Lewis demanded, trying to sound steady. No response. Then, slowly, a pale hand slid through the meal slot. The fingernails were cracked, the skin ghostly white. The voice that followed was quiet, hoarse, almost trembling. "You shouldn't have come back here." Lewis's pulse hammered in his ears. "What do you mean? Who's still here?" The voice gave a shaky laugh. "Marcus. He never left. None of them do." Before Lewis could reply, the power surged back on. The harsh fluorescent light filled the hallway again, blinding him for a second. When his eyes adjusted, the hand was gone. He moved closer to the cell and looked through the viewing window. The room was empty. The bed, the sink, the toilet, all there. But no inmate. Lewis stumbled back. His radio crackled. "Control to D-block, report status. We lost your feed for 10 seconds. Everything all right?" He pressed the button, still staring at the empty cell. Negative, Control. I think we've got another missing inmate." The silence on the other end lasted too long. Then, the voice of the warden came through, calm but firm. "Lock down the block. No one in or out. We're moving to full containment." The heavy doors slammed shut. Red lights began to flash. But Lewis wasn't listening, because from behind him, inside Marcus's old cell, the tapping started again. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. This time, it wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from inside the vent. The next morning, the FBI arrived again. 2 black SUVs rolled into the compound, and a team of agents entered, led by Special Agent Dana Harlow, a no-nonsense investigator who had seen her share of classified cases. She was handed Marcus Reed's file. She flipped through it, her eyes narrowing. Disappeared at 2:37 a.m. Cameras went offline for exactly 10 seconds. Again. She looked up at the warden. "That's the 4th disappearance, right?" "5th, he corrected. "We just lost another inmate last night." Her jaw tightened. "And you're telling me there's no way they could have escaped? This place is designed to be unescapable." The warden nodded grimly. "That's what terrifies us." They reviewed the footage. Just static. 10 seconds of static every time. When the feed returned, the cell was empty. But Harlow noticed something no one else did. In the last frame before the blackout, Marcus was standing near the wall, looking directly into the camera, smiling. And on the frame after the blackout, faintly visible in the same spot, there was still a shadow. A human-shaped shadow. She leaned closer. Enhanced that section. The tech froze the frame. When the image sharpened, Harlow's stomach dropped. The shadow wasn't Marcus. It was taller, thinner, standing behind him. Meanwhile, Officer Lewis hadn't slept. He couldn't. He kept hearing the tapping in his head, the rhythm repeating over and over like Morse code. He looked it up. Tap, tap, pause, tap, Tap, tap. Translated, it spelled out 3 letters, OPE. Open, he whispered. He returned to the block that night, alone. He shouldn't have been there. The section was off-limits during FBI investigation. But something pulled him back. He stood outside cell 313 and placed his hand on the cold metal door. Marcus, he said softly, if you're still here, what are you trying to tell us? The air grew colder. From inside the vent, a whisper, it's not what you think. Lewis stepped back, his heart racing. What isn't? The whisper grew louder, distorted, as if more than one voice was speaking. They watch us, but they don't work for them. Before Lewis could ask who they were, the lights flickered again. This time, not just for 10 seconds, for 30. The control panels went offline. The emergency systems failed. Total blackout. When the lights came back on, all 4 cells in that hallway were empty. And carved into the floor in rough, jagged letters was a message. Stop looking. By dawn, panic spread through ADX Florence. The FBI locked down every unit, moved guards into rotation, and confiscated all internal footage. But Harlow had seen enough. She pulled Lewis into an interrogation room. What did you see last night? He looked pale, exhausted. You wouldn't believe me. Try me. There's something in the vents, he said. Something not human. Harlow frowned. You think the inmates are hiding in the air ducts? Impossible. They are too small. Lewis shook his head. Not hiding. Taken. Harlow sighed. Officer Lewis, listen to me. But before she could finish, a low hum filled the room. The lights flickered once more. The security camera in the corner turned by itself, pointed directly at them. The screen on the wall lit up, showing the live feed from cell 313. Marcus Reed was standing inside it. Alive. Smiling. He leaned close to the camera and whispered a single sentence. You can't escape something that isn't real. Then the feed cut to static. That was the last time anyone saw Marcus Reed. 2 days later, ADX Florence was quietly shut down for maintenance. No news stories. No public reports. But word spread among insiders. Something happened in D Block. Something the Bureau couldn't explain. Some say the disappearances were government experiments. Some say the inmates had found a way to manipulate the surveillance system. But Officer Lewis? He never spoke again. 6 months later, he was found in his apartment, alive, but catatonic. On his wall, scratched into the plaster, were the same words found inside ADX Florence. It's not a prison. It's a test. And beneath them, a new message no one had seen before. You passed.